About 2 years ago, I was at our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in my hometown of Pittsburgh, where I went to this workshop that was a dialogue with the author Brian Broom, who is a gay black man who was speaking about his best-selling and award-winning memoir. And at some point in the talk, Broom told the audience that he proudly claimed the term queer as an identity, and that he thinks of queer in an expansive way, a way similar to bell hooks, the late author, social critic, and prophet. And Broom shared with us a quote from bell hooks that she once used to explain what she meant when she identified herself as queer. So here's the quote. "Queer, not as being about who you're having sex with, though that can be a dimension of it, but queer as being about the self that is at odds with everything around it, and that has to invent and to create and to find a place to speak and to thrive and to live." And Broom went on, the author, he went on to tell this audience, an audience made up of hundreds of UUs, Broom went on to say that he suspected that using that definition of queer, that almost everyone in that room, as UUs, as a people who profess values that so often seem to be at odds with the world that we live in and the current administration in the White House, Broom said that he suspected that almost everyone in that room was, at least according to bell hooks' definition, a little bit queer. Now, on the one hand, I think that there's a little kernel of truth in this. Our tradition, Unitarian Universalism, we really do aspire to do religion in a way that is outside of the norm and at odds with how most of us here in the United States tend to think about religion. We gather in religious communities in which we not only believe different things about whether or not God exists, let alone what that God might be like, but we celebrate our theological diversity because we know that it makes us stronger. It gives each of us insights into life's biggest questions that we might not have had if we didn't have the wisdom of others around us. And in a country in which so many of the loudest religious voices and the most prominent churches are often the most conservative, using religion to justify injustices and other things that are unjustifiable, we are a religion that intentionally puts love at the center. We put love at the center, and we seek to build a world where there really is liberty and justice for all people, a world which we strive to begin building, however imperfectly we do it, in communities like this one, in our local UU churches. In short, using bell hooks' definition of queer, there is a very real way that Unitarian Universalism does queer what it means to be a church. We do seek to be at odds with conservative and exclusionary definitions of what it means to be a faith community or a church, and we seek to build religious communities, churches, where all people truly can invent and create and find a place to speak and to live and to thrive. On the other hand, something about Broom's statement that using bell hooks' definition of queer, all UUs are probably a little bit queer, well, that statement didn't quite sit right with me as a queer person, as someone who's non-binary, and as someone who holds other queer identities. You see, folks, and this is something you're going to learn over the next month or so, I am inherently skeptical of any take like this one, which feels like it could let us off the hook for the hard work of justice and equity and inclusion. I'm skeptical of anything that feels self-congratulatory when there is obviously work that still needs to be done. And so my worry in telling a whole room of people, straight and gay, trans and cisgender, those who do identify as queer and those who don't, is that it might give those of us who aren't queer an excuse for not doing the work that we need to do to welcome queer folks and all of their queerness. It might give us the sense that we've already done the work, that we need to do to ensure that queer folks are welcome here and safe and supported, regardless of if they actually do feel that way. And the truth is that every UU congregation that I've been to has still had a little bit of work to do on this, especially when it comes to understanding our trans and non-binary siblings. And I say this from personal experience. I have heard people use the wrong pronouns for me at every single UU church I have been to. And I say that not because I expect perfection, but because it maybe is a sign that the self-congratulatory stuff is a little premature. And I also worry. I worry that in saying something like, well, all UUs are a little bit queer, is that it takes the focus away from the particular struggles that those of us who are queer have historically faced and that we continue to face today because of our queer identities. Harvey Milk, for example, he became a target of public hatred because he was an openly gay man. An openly gay man who actively and publicly promoted the rights of the queer community. And Harvey Milk, he needed to fight against unjust laws because there were laws at the time that specifically made it illegal for people to have sex with the people of the same gender. And we see the same thing happening today. We see Harvey Milk's name being taken off of Navy ships, and we see state after state enact laws that specifically target trans people, trying to force trans people out of the military and youth sports, and trying to prevent trans people from accessing the health care that they need and the bathrooms that align with our gender identities. The good news is, of course, that this is not how it has to be. It does not have to be this way. The forces of meanness and exclusion, they don't have to have the last word. Indeed, that's the whole point of Pride Month. It's a month when we celebrate queer life and queer joy and queer identities and queer dignity. It's a month when we celebrate queer people and queer communities who, in spite of everything, have, in the words of Bell Hooks, found ways to invent and create and find a place to speak and to thrive and to live. And while I'm still skeptical of the claim that all UUs are probably a little bit queer, Pride is an invitation. It's an invitation for all of us, especially for those of us who aren't queer, especially now, to learn from the wisdom of queer folks and from queer communities' ways of being in the world. It's an invitation to take pride in who we are, no matter what anyone else says. It's an invitation to break down binaries that try to tell us who we can be and who we can't, what we can do and what we can't. And perhaps above all, Pride is an invitation to work on welcoming one another and accepting one another and honoring one another's identities, as queer people have long done for one another in our communities. And as we UUs, in our best moments, as we seek to do here in this place and in this faith, where we do our best, however imperfectly, to queer church. Happy Pride, everyone. Happy Pride. Amen.